This is the Like-Minded Investors Real Estate Podcast, episode number 7. Sarah, hi, welcome to the Like-Minded Investors Podcast. I am so excited you are here. I am sure Bill is too. Again, it's like 9:00 at night and we are still up and recording and excited to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us, especially so late at night.
Yes. Thank you for accommodating. So I make my life work around a toddler. So I greatly appreciate the two of you being like, what time's your best time to do a podcast? 9 p.m. So you guys are wonderful. I feel like you and I have known each other for a while. Bill and I are about to know each other very well after this little episode. So we'll all be besties by the end. So
Absolutely.
It should be fun.
Absolutely will. And just so all of you guys know, I literally am sometimes in bed by 9:00. So
This is a big deal. Yeah.
This is a huge deal, Sarah. You better be honored. No, I'm just kidding. No,
I'm feeling the love. It's good for me.
I don't have a little one. So, I'm an early bird in the morning. So, 5 a.m. is usually my wake up time. So, I'm in bed early. So
yeah. See, I get up at 6:45. So I have a good couple more hours a day. Night is my thing. And I also thrive on not sleeping. So I'm a good 6 to 7 hours person.
That's me as well. I'm a team go to bed super late. This is perfect for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I finally get a second wind about an hour prior to this.
Yep.
You're going to be falling asleep and me and Bill are feeling great right now.
I know, right? So I guess, I don't know, let's start off. I have listened to, you've been on so many other podcast episodes. I have listened to so many of them and I just you have been such an inspiration for me. I would love for you to kind of just start by, who you are, kind of what you've done and where you are now, and I know that's a lot because you have been through a lot since I've known you.
I've had a lot of shit happen. Yes,
absolutely.
I'll do the elevator pitch and then we can dive into whatever piece you guys want to unpack. So I guess you and I probably started following each other when I was full on real estate. I don't know if you remember me from so I started my account. So I'm Nerds Guide to FI on Instagram for people who don't know me or know me yet. I guess we'll be friends now. But I am Nerds Guide to FI on Instagram. I have a Facebook page that I seriously neglect, a side podcast that I've not posted on for 3 months until yesterday, and a blog that has 2 posts on it. So, but I'm an Instagram junkie and I answer all my DMs. So I started out on Instagram as a crazy Dave Ramsey person, commiserating with other people in the little hashtag debt-free community back when Instagram was kind of getting its kickoff with more of these community aspect groups. And so I was newly married when I discovered Dave Ramsey, and that was 2016. And we got in all of this debt. He got some DUIs and there was car accidents and all these things. We ended up in $18,000 worth of debt and couldn't breathe. And we both had newer jobs and newer vehicles and we were just suffocating. And so to me, I had checked every box. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate is you go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, you graduate, I went to grad school. I graduated grad school. I got my job in my degree field and I got married and checked all these boxes. And then you're just drowning in car loans and car payments and life happens and it gets a little crazy. And, I think I was so focused on doing what was right and what people expected of you, especially so I'm from Indiana. I'm from a small town. And so I also think there's this very crazy pressure to just get married. And so I was the old one because I went to grad school and got married afterwards and people were worrying about it in small town Indiana because how many years of school is she going to do? Anyway, we paid off $18,000. It's so true though. I don't know how you guys have small town backgrounds at all, but it's a thing in the Midwest. And so I did all of that. And then we paid off $118,000 in 2 years. And then I kind of got really into the FIRE movement. So financial independence, retire early, and got really into financial independence bloggers and podcasts. And then there was very limited diversity in kind of the financial independence area, where it was like historically like old white engineers, or not old, young-ish white engineers. And there's a stereotype like Mr. Money Mustache and all of these, you know, kind of the OG people of the FI community were just, it was pretty homogeneous. And so, you know, I kind of got into it that way, but then I didn't like super saving in index funds. And that's really how I got into real estate. Was I'm like, I don't want to save and like throw money at stocks every month. Like this sparks no joy for me. Like I'm going to be bored. I'm going to quit. This sucks. Like I'm already bored just like thinking about it. And I haven't even started. Like I'm still in the debt payoff phase and I'm impatient. Like that's probably the thing that's gotten me farther in life, is I have no patience, except for like my toddler gets 100% of my patience. And by then there's nothing left for anyone else. And so I don't know how that happens, but yeah. So then I started doing real estate and I just fell in love, and I've been doing that ever since. And so my kind of channels have really converted over to more real estate, but kind of representing women in real estate. No offense, Bill, you're surrounded by the ladies for this episode. But I think it's interesting to talk about, there was a post today, I don't know if any of you saw it or whatever, that was going around where it was talking about how historically like women in the debt-free community and women accounts are always talking about like budgeting and groceries and coupons. And I'm like, that is great. But I really like, if someone tells me I should cut coupons, I want to poke my eyes out. Like, it's just not something that is fun for me. And so I'm like, no, I do real estate and index funds, and the amount of things I like pay for in a week are stupid. Like I wear like Lululemon leggings and I have my yard mowed and I have a cleaning lady coming next week. Like it's not frugal, but like my net worth is really good and doing really well. So, oh yeah. And then, so probably the part we're going to dive into a little bit is, so the last 2 years, I actually got divorced also. So my divorce was final in April. And so as a part of that, one of the interesting things that all of you guys have got to watch kind of strategically with, I guess, sharing as much as I can without being like Debbie Downer here, because divorces suck. But I'd watched other big accounts in the FIRE community not talk about divorce. It was like, if you Google really hard, you might find out that they got divorced, but it was never a thing. I'm like, no, this like rocks your world. Like your world comes to a screeching halt for like a year, and it is like pretty catastrophic. And so the fact that no one was really talking about it, I just didn't want to be that person, because I'm like, this is like one of the major life events you'll have. And there's no one talking about divorce and money, it seemed like. And so I kind of fully shared the numbers, and we sold all 5 of the properties that we had bought together over the last 3 years. So I guess the timeline for me is 2016 started Dave Ramsey, 2018 paid off debt. And then from 2018 to 2020, so 2 years, we acquired 5 properties. And then 2020 was when like our lives fell apart. And I got out of like a very toxic, unhealthy relationship and exited that. And then we sold everything that we had owned together just because I needed an easy button. And I'm like, we're going to sell everything and start over. Like both of us, same page, like give me a pile of cash. Like I just want to be done. And so, yeah. So now I'm kind of in the process of, we've sold all 5 houses now, and all the funds are being held by the clerk of court right now. And I'm waiting for the funds to be dispersed. So I'm currently like pre-rich, with a lot of ideas to buy some property with the funds from all of those houses. But 2021 has been an amazing year to sell properties. And so honestly, like life has worked out very, very well, even though it was very, very messy. And at the time I'm like, this sucks. But looking back, like it was really, really kind of excellent timing for something so horrible to go down. Because COVID, I was grounded. So my job is usually travel. And I wasn't traveling, and I could just focus on my daughter and just staying like healthy for her and getting like a life coach and a therapist and all of the fun things. So that is a really long elevator pitch that we should probably unpack now. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
there is.
There we go. That's my word vomit.
I love word vomit. That there is definitely a lot to unpack there. And first of all, I just love how open you are about everything. Like that is why, like, I love following you on Instagram. I love your your lives. I just feel like, you know, you're so down to earth and so real. And it's like, you know, I don't know anybody else that talks about the fact that they've gone through a divorce or are going through a divorce and what happens to all the properties that you guys bought together. And kind of like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of have put it out there too, that you're starting over almost. You're starting over with a little bit of, you know, that cash because of being, you know, the appreciation.
There's knowledge and then eventually some cash. But like things really started falling apart in like back in 2019. And so I feel like my life has been on like hold kind of until we figured this out. But like literally when I say I started over, like I moved out of my house, I moved into my parents, I like had to get all new bank accounts, all new, like I had to like rebuild everything. Like when I say like, I don't even have a piece of plastic, like a credit card that was once anything I had when I was married, like everything is new. And so like bought myself a house, like every bank account, everything, like I just started all over again because it wasn't safe to do it any other way.
Yeah.
So it was like out of necessity. But now it's pretty crazy to look back and be like, everything I have is brand new. You see kind of like cleanly cut ties, which is nice, but also very overwhelming because that's a lot of change in a very short amount of time, even though it seemed like it was taking forever. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think you said something poetic in your intro as well, where you said, you know, even though there was rough times and getting through everything, that like 2021 is a good year. You kind of came out almost better in a lot of ways, cash rich, ready to invest.
Hopefully someday.
But I mean, I don't know if I follow anyone on Instagram or follow the stories of anyone who has openly at least gone through as much adversity in the midst of investing. So it's incredible to see the openness and hear it. And also see you continue. I think a lot of people would have just said, I'm done. This is too hard.
I owe a lot to my life coach. Like, no, but it's like a mindset thing. You're like, this could make me terrible, bitter, and like hibernate and sell all my properties and sit in a corner somewhere like rocking, because it was really bad, like really bad. Like it was one of the more ugly divorces I've heard of. And so, it was tough, but I mean, you figure it out and you have to get up. And I'm like, I keep telling everyone, like, it was very good for me because I used to be like a perfectionist and this like very intense, like people pleaser, and everyone's opinions of me like mattered so much. And now I'm like, I'm not for everyone. Like if I could put that on a shirt, that'd be great. Like I just like, this is me and this is it laid out. Yes. Like I'm really good. Like, I don't like the, okay, cool. Like unfollow me. I don't care.
I would buy that shirt. I'd wear it.
Me too. Me too.
If I get merch someday, gonna put that on a shirt. Like this is not for everyone, and that's fine.
So Sarah, did your, you know, now I guess ex-husband, was he kind of on board with the real estate investing? Did he help you with all that stuff from the beginning? Or, you know, was it something that you had to convince him of? Like, give us the rundown on that.
Yeah. So I feel like the debt-free part, I definitely did it kind of by myself for about a year. And I waitressed on top of doing a full-time job to like pay off my car and pay off all this stuff because he realistically was not going to get rid of anything. And then he was voluntold to like go to these like Dave Ramsey events with me. So we did like smart money and we did like these conferences together, and he got really into it in the end and ended up like selling a vehicle or two. And you know, we actually paid off the last bit of our debt really together, but he was never into like the fine details or the day-to-day budgeting. But we definitely like, he worked a plan and he's like, I don't need to know the micro detail, but like, this brings you joy, like looking at the budget. So like you do you, and just like, tell me, like, he was a big fan of cash. Like that really worked for him. Like we would talk before a month began and be like, okay, just how much spending money do we both want? And we'd get like our $200 each, and then we'd go about our month. And that's kind of what we would spend. And so we really worked together well, kind of that second year. And then real estate started out as his idea. Like he'd always talked about like, oh, I really want to buy houses and things, but the action steps weren't really there. And I'm like a very goal oriented, like systems and processes person. And so I kind of nerded out over real estate and realized that like spreadsheets and processes were like most of it. And so he was the repair, handyman, maintenance guy, like remodeling extraordinaire. And I did all of the like deal finding, deal creation, like paperwork, mortgage pre-approvals, like all of the logistics. And so he would go in and remodel. So we did 2 live-in flips together. We did a small remodel and then a larger remodel. So 4, I think, rehabs before like things went south. Like things went south during remodel 4. And that's actually how I realized like things were going bad in the marriage, is because the remodel got so weird. So yeah, that is how I figured out like my marriage was falling apart. Was so for those of you who haven't followed for very long, so it ended up being like an addiction problem. And so like everything stopped making sense. Like I would go and I'm like, what did you get done today? And he's like, I changed out all the doorknobs. And I'm like, why? And just like the weirdest things were happening. And I like couldn't understand it. And I'm like, I know this is weird because I'm not the person that does it, but I'm the person that's helped you like mud drywall or lay flooring and been like the cut person on the saw. And so I like, he was supposed to go do drywall work and he laid all the floors instead. And I'm like, I mean, thank you. But like, also like anyone that's ever remodeled anything knows like the floors are last. And like, dear Lord, now we have to mud all these walls and do all these things and the floors are in like, and the only reason I know this is because you've taught me this, like what the heck is happening? And so that was kind of like red flag number 1, where like things just stopped making sense. And that was kind of my first like foray into, oh goodness, this is not going well. So it's like, I've also lived, I feel like it's a good example to talk about because it kind of is a good example for like partnerships. And if a partnership goes bad in business, I'm like, while like it's a delicate conversation to talk about because I don't want to share like you don't want to be like, oh, let me like word vomit all of the crazy things I've been through, but also people go into partnerships and things don't end up working out well. And like, never saw this coming. Like you just don't expect like your person to get into bad things. And so to watch it all kind of fall apart around you is crazy. So, but I think it's something that people could totally get into with partnerships and just trying to like think of ways to protect yourself kind of from one another in a way is something that I always think about now when talking about like deals and partners and everything like that. Like partnerships, I think will forever scare me because I've lived it when it doesn't go well.
So, you know, speaking of partnerships, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but you know, since it was your husband, I'm sure you didn't have some kind of like actual written out, you know, attorney approved like partnership with your husband, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually did, because in order to get the portfolio, but actually ended up being worse. Well, I mean, worse, we were probably in the same boat regardless. So we actually, and so we had combined. So one of the other things to talk about a lot is portfolio loans. And so we did a commercial lending on the third property, the third rental. So the last rehab we did a portfolio loan on. And when we did that, they wanted our articles of organization and all the details on the LLC and our operating agreement. So I just like went on like LegalZoom and like printed off like Joe Smo's like operating agreement and just like penned it in. And so we were just both like 50-50 owners. But one of the hard parts was we needed to both sign on everything according to this agreement, which ended up being really problematic because he was like unreachable for some time and just getting a hold of him became really hard. And so that's why part of the reason we ended up doing something called a receivership in the divorce is because he was so absent for a while that we ended up appointing a receiver to handle everything. So if he was not responding to emails, the receiver could just like, she just handled everything for us. So she set the sale prices, she chose what offer was accepted and hit all the timelines, and we didn't have to wait on him. So I know in the end, it's going to cost us more money to appoint a receiver to make all those decisions, but it was really important just because there was such a breakdown of communication by the end that there was like in that with that operating agreement in place for the LLC, I was like, we cannot wait on him to answer all these emails. Like it's a seller's market. These houses are going to be gone in like 24 hours. And if we can't reach him for weeks, like this is going to be problematic. So that's kind of how we ended up going about everything is just logistically, that would be easier. Like the loss of the money to pay a receiver to do all of that was worth it to just be done in a timely manner.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I get that. I mean, so I guess my only other thing is like, what if, I mean, I know you don't want to think about it, but, you know, there are probably a lot of couples out there who are going into quote unquote partnerships together,
Right.
Without any kind of documentation or without any kind of, you know, all the things that even though you took them right off some website and kind of like laid them out, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like
I was my own attorney.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, exactly. You're probably better off than a lot of other couples who, like, hopefully it doesn't happen to them, but
and it was actually fairly straightforward because we were married, and in the state of Indiana, you just 50-50 split everything. Okay. And so, but not all states are like that too. So I can't imagine, like, and I know in all states that probably wouldn't be the case, but you never, like, we signed up so young for all of this. And I'm like, there was no talk about like how to do, like, we had no assets to really go into it. And so when everything was separated, it was more of just a split and sell. So honestly, that part was pretty straightforward. It was just like the day-to-day logistics of responsiveness was probably the biggest hurdle. So, and kind of settling on, we tried for a while to figure out like who would keep what. And at the end, we decided to sell it because we just couldn't agree on everything. So yeah, that was because I'm like, I don't want a hunting property and I don't want the house you're living in, but then you want rentals, but I don't want anything. Like, it was just like, it's such a weird situation because I'm like, there's 5 houses, the rentals are significantly less. And we have like all this land. And yeah, so we went through like 3 rounds of mediation trying to separate out like what we'd keep. And then finally in the end, we're like, you know, we're just both gonna clean slate and start over. So it ended up being it took months to get there and lots of mediation, but in the end, I think it makes the most sense. So yeah, but like partnership agreements do matter. And I've lived through having to be like, well, what does your agreement say? And I'm like, oh, you know, the one I just like printed off online, let's go take a look at that. Like, they're like, oh, do you have like this section and this section? I'm like, I literally don't even know, but I 1000%, like, this was all me. Like, I did all of this paperwork. So if it says something like not great, this is all on me from, you know, my LegalZoom expertise. So I think at the time when you're trying to get a portfolio loan and everything's going well, you don't think about like the importance of these documents. You're just like shooting out of your printer and signing real quick. So,
oh my gosh, I love that. Shooting out of your printer. I completely agree. So,
because we both signed it. I'm like, I don't think either one of us were aware of what we were signing until it came down to it. And we're like, oh, well, that agreement, we really do have one. Let's dig that out and see what we signed. So
here's the thing. At least you signed something. On mine and my husband's second flip, we partnered with somebody. We did not do it the right way. We had no partnership agreements, nothing in writing. It was literally all through email and text message, and it just did not work out. We wound up still making money, and so did our quote unquote partner, but it was not the right way to do stuff. So at least you had a little bit of something to go off of.
Yeah. So we did have something. So I was grateful that we did some paperwork because I DIY'd our LLCs. I DIY'd everything. And so I felt like mildly embarrassed when I had to like go over with like a real attorney to be like, look at these documents I just like pulled off the computer. So he's like, you did pretty well. I'm like, it was just pure chance. So trying to do better the next time around.
better than nothing is kind of my theory, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, Bill, were you about to say something?
No, I was going to say the exact same thing. At least you guys had something in place. You at least did some semblance of research to print them out. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So where are you today now then? After all of this mess, I know that I guess you're still waiting on this quote unquote pile of cash, but kind of where are you now? Like, what have you done since this, divorce / catastrophe of a, of a marriage, of a partnership? Yeah. Let us know.
So I guess 3 months after moving out, I was like, I love my parents, but at the age of 31, I don't want to be cohabitating anymore with like a toddler who's, I think she was 8 months old when I moved out. And so she was little, like she like took her first steps at my parents' house. And so I started house shopping, and I'm like, I need a house hack, because at this point he was kind of in the wind, and I was covering, like, you guys watched me for an exorbitant amount of time complain about covering all the mortgages. And I think that is probably where I got like the most catty, because I'm like, this is kind of bullshit, but not my best moment. But it was very frustrating to have to be like, keep everything alive and keep all the
that was the truth.
And
I felt like I loved watching that, because it was like, this is the truth. Like, this girl is covering the mortgages when she doesn't really have to be. You are protecting your credit and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that the reasons that you were doing it were so amazing to put out to the community. So sorry I interrupted. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, please interrupt. I'm very bad at interrupting myself, so you can interrupt me all day and I won't even notice. It was, so essentially, so I did exactly what you said. So we had, this portfolio loan with 3 properties in it. And then we had a primary residence and a piece of land. And then I moved out and then got myself a house hack. And so then I was covering my house hack before it was hacked, I guess I should say. So my mortgage on my own, and then in addition to his mortgage, the mortgage on this hunting property that clearly I cared not of, because I'm like, I don't hunt. It was kind of like a toy, but it was, we ended up doubling our money on that. So I can't hate it too much. And then the rentals. And so I, was covering all of these for almost a year. And I was like, house hacking is now a necessity unless I want to keep living with mom and dad. And so I shopped house hacks, because for years I was like, well, probably 2 years, I was like, I want a house hack so bad. And that was always a no. And so I'm like, okay, I'm doing me now. And I have a 5 million more expenses than your average person. And I am so grateful every day I can pay all of them. And that I have a job through COVID, and I can, I am just so grateful to have this good paying job, and I can cover all of these. And also grateful I live in Indiana, because I think like, obviously 5 like New York City mortgages would not be feasible, but thank goodness Midwest. So here we are. And so just covering all of that. So house hacking was a necessity. So I ended up buying a single family home, and it's in a really good neighborhood in a really easily rentable place. And I converted it into an up-down duplex. And so essentially I bought a single family home that had a walkout basement, because it would have all the exterior holes needed to have 2 bedrooms and like form of egress windows and all of that good stuff. I looked at, I think 3 or 4 houses before buying that one. And that was also the first time I ever bought something with private money. So I've now done 2 deals with private money. Prior to that, I'd done all conventional 20% down mortgages, including a 20% down portfolio loan. And then I went and I did private money with relatives, because I was so worried that he would try to come after my house in the divorce. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want like the place where I'm like, someday when he like resurfaces, like he's going to try to come after this house. And I didn't want that to be a thing. So I didn't want to own it. And so I do relatives and mortgage pre-approvals. I'm like, I can go get myself pre-approved for like a nothing down mortgage, but I don't want it in my name because I'm scared. And so they ended up like, I had relatives do it, and then I've refinanced since then. So under a year later, I refinanced it, and now it's in my name. So that was kind of like a proud moment to like give them their money back. And they're like, this is sweet. So I'm like, hey, you want to do it again? And so that's how I bought my second house this year, was using the same private money lender, but this time I actually like titled it and everything in the name of new LLC. And so I actually own that. And then we just have a promissory note and a recorded lien to them. So I make my private money lender payments on that. So that one I did structured a little bit differently, because they're like, we don't really want it in our name this time, because like the divorce is final and everything. And we know that that's like, my lawyer said like, he can't come after your house because like the date of separation had already happened and you already filed. But I'm like, it just like made me so nervous at the time. That's how we structured it.
Right.
So I've now done 2 deals with the private money lender, kind of out of necessity, with the goal of, I paid you back once and it went really well. So like, let's do it again. So I used that same lender to buy a duplex. And so now when I get the funds from this magical pile of money that I keep referring to, I'm going to pay them back again. So that's kind of the plan. So
smart to use private money and use relatives. I'm sure obviously they were apprised of the situation and knew what was going on. So I just think that's super smart. And we've heard other people use strategies with spouses and partnerships to put mortgages in one person's name and stuff, but using private money as a way through a divorce to get yourself a house where, I mean, you had so much other expenses.
Yeah.
You have a toddler, like,
yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot going on. So, but I'm like, I have a good job. And so that helped a lot. My credit score is like still an 800 because I was able to weather the 1 year of crazy finances. My lawyer is like happily on a payment plan and we're just calling that a day. So you just kind of prioritize and move on. So yeah, the name of the game is making it.
So with that,
yeah, like doing my best, that could also be a shirt.
There you go. Yeah, doing my best. I'd buy that shirt or coffee mug.
Yes, or mugs. Very important.
Right. I know. What are you drinking? Is that tea or do we not want to know?
This is tea right now. No,
Okay.
this is tea straight up. I rarely drink because I'm so busy. It makes me too tired. Because that's usually what you'd want like late at night. But I'm like an old grandma. And so I drink like 30, like I usually drink 1 to 2 pots of coffee a day and people like cups and like no pots, like of coffee. I've cut back to like 1. And then I drink tea at night because I have to sleep someday.
Yeah. Bill knows I went cold turkey on coffee for almost a week. I'm back up to just 1 cup a day. I'm like, all right, I need something every morning, but yeah. So I'm curious. So with that first, like you were talking about how, you know, after or during, I guess, your divorce, you purchased another home. But it was it not in your name? And the mortgage, like kind of like how, like, you know, because there's a deed, there's a mortgage kind of, can you explain how, you know, for the new people to the real estate investing world, kind of what the difference is and how you were able to make that happen where it was actually your house, but they kind of funded it.
Yeah. So that would be the second. So post-divorce, I think, timeline. So I bought it in June. And so that would have been post. So that was so divorce final in April. Yay. And then people are always like, why are you happy? I'm like, you have no idea what I've been through over the last 2 years. So like, it's a happy thing by the time you get to the end, because I'm like, both of us are better off. Like we are in different wavelengths, like doing us. So, I'm like, this is a blessing on both ends, like whether, you know, you want to look at it that way or not. So, anyway, so June, found a property on the MLS actually. So turns out you can still find rentals on the MLS. I think that's an Indiana thing, but actually no, because I just saw Mark McMahon found a rental on the MLS today that they're going to flip. And so he's in California. So I don't want you people to come after us because look at like Mark's making it happen.
I made it happen.
So anyway. Yeah. So I love talking to people because I'm like, you have to move fast. Like you have to get your shit together, but like, it's possible. So I called them and I was like, hey, like we did this deal, like you got your money back. Like we refinanced it. And so I'm like, I do. And they wanted to structure it differently this time. So I'm like, you don't need to put it in your name. Like we're kind of through this like weird life point. But I really would like to invest in this deal and I can do the numbers and put together the spreadsheets and send them all over to you. And we'll do like, I make them do like a business meeting and their family and they think it's ridiculous, but I'm like, I feel better about like having like a formal meal and like a business review of the numbers. And so this time they had less questions, which I think is a good thing. So how we structured it was, they will pay all cash. And so that's how we did my previous house as well, as they were 100%, like it was an all cash offer. And so it was really shockingly easy. Like it blows my mind. Like once you get out of the world of mortgages, like how simple it is. And so literally, so you could probably Google like a promise, like a standard promissory note in your state. I DM'd Lauren, they're probably going to hate me for this. I DM'd Lauren and Kyle from Reynolds to Wealth and was like, hey, I know you've done promissory notes. Can I have your template? And then I use that twice now. So I've used the Lauren and Kyle template twice to do my promissory note. And so you put all your terms in there. So you say, like I lent it. So I bought it in the name of my LLC. So Sarah King serving as like my LLC name, purchasing it. And then like the lender. So instead of like saying like Farmer State Bank will be your lender is like human beings. So they're kind of acting as your bank is kind of one way to think about it. And so it'll be their names are lending you this money. And so we wrote up this promissory note, like literally like typed it in my like Google Docs and printed it out and we both signed it. And then I like took it to the title company. I'm like, this is how we're doing this closing. And so we put an offer in with an escalation clause, which was really fun because I've never done one of those before. And so did that, got the accepted offer. And then the title company just needed proof of funds. So from their standpoint, their financial person sent over a proof of funds letter. And then I sent over our promissory note, and then the title company like handled everything. And then literally they just like wired the money. And then I bought the house, which is kind of crazy. So because my private money lender is very trusting. And so they didn't require us to record. So there's usually 2 steps to this. There's the promissory note, and then you also record a deed. So if like a bank would search right now, and like, for example, I'm refinancing this house already. And so for the bank, like can't find that there's a lien against it because there really isn't a lien against it. Like the only thing that says that I owe these people like $180,000 is this like piece of paper I have sitting on the bookcase behind me that the title company has. So we didn't record a deed. And so that's kind of step 2 that you should probably do. But they said it wasn't needed and it was just extra fees. And so we skipped that step. But talking about like partnerships going wrong, like keep in mind that you probably should record the deed, because if something goes south, like you need it formally recorded to really like, in order for them to get the $180,000 back, like the promissory note's going to be a very weak thing to hold up in court.
So that's like something that you're, I feel like that's something, sorry, I'm interrupting you again. I feel like my internet is a little bit lagging here.
No, you're good.
I feel like that's something that, a lot of people talk about, where it's kind of like, it's beneficial for you as Sarah not to have that, on your record or whatever you want to call it, but it's also not beneficial for your private money partners to, they don't have as much protection. So I feel like it's like an
unsecured, it's like an unsecured loan pretty much. Like there is very, very little security that I'm going to give them that money back, except like my word. Yeah. And they know where I live. And but
that just shows they totally trust you. And that's the whole thing about, private money is the know, like, and trust factor. So they obviously had all 3 of those things invested in you. So that's pretty cool.
Yes. And the holidays are coming up, so they might see you at a family
event. We will see each other. We see each other every week. It's going to be bad. No. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So they're going to get paid back hopefully in the next like month or so. So, but it's interesting because right now it looks like Sarah like owns this house free and clear with no mortgages. Like if you pull like title work and everything, and I'm like, sweet. I like walked in, signed a piece of paper, and I own a house free and clear and no one knows. So it feels really sketchy. Like I just feel like there should be more of a paper trail. Like I remember like being at signing, I'm like, okay, that's it. Like I just like walked in and looked cute and talked to my realtor for a while and signed some documents. Like it's a little scary when you pay all in cash, how little paperwork there is, because when you take out mortgages, you like sign your life away. So
yeah. And your first,
and you have to prove everything. And this time I'm like I can just like have random people like wiring me money and they don't care where it's coming from because it's all cash, which is fascinating to me. So this is what I've learned about private money. It's pretty badass. And I'd like to keep that going, but I also want to keep my lender happy because this is a great way to scale up because the banks are very happy to grant me loans on something that appears to be owned free and clear. Yeah. So of course, I disclosed to them that I have like an actual lien against it. It's just not formally recorded because I'm still a good person. So, but I'm sure there are people out there that do not. So
yes, there definitely are. So that's a good thing to note. You actually put it on your applications when you go to refi that you owe these private money lenders $180,000 or whatever.
Yeah. So I put it on the refi for this. I will say, like, when I got approved to do my primary residence refinance, and that was through a bank, I didn't list out, like, I owned all these rental properties because they were held within a portfolio loan, and the bank holds that in-house. And so that's also like not technically recorded, but I didn't think it was, I'm like, this isn't really valid. Like, my debt to income ratio is ridiculous. And so I didn't go through the lengths of writing down all of them, because it's like such a foray into like calling the bank and figuring out how much all of the loans are and everything. So I didn't include it on that because it's also owned under an LLC. And so that's like business money versus personal money too. So kind of separate in a way also. But it was more just like logistically easier, because I'm like, I don't want to have to explain to someone why they can't see these mortgages. So
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I feel like we are so far into this episode already, and I feel like there's so much stuff we could dive into. I'm like, what do we do next?
I haven't even like touched the tip of the iceberg, I feel.
We can go for one. No, kidding. People are going to be like, we can't talk for hours for this podcast.
Just split it into like 5 episodes.
I was gonna say we're just gonna have to have you on for more episodes. But Bill, do you have any burning questions for Sarah?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
I thought
actually.
You did. It looked like I could tell by your face you had some burning questions.
7 episodes in, we already have the co-host.
Yes. Looked at you.
Yeah. So going back to kind of like the divorce properties and trying to sell them.
Yeah.
Were you open to like alternative ways of selling them, like seller financing? I know you had mentioned that you just wanted to get rid of them and not hold the note or anything like that. But isn't there a way for somebody to kind of hold that and you guys get paid every month?
Probably, but we did not explore that option. Okay. So the first time we ever went to like separate the properties, I'm like, I'm managing the rentals. Half the tenants he hasn't even met or knows their name. And so I'm going to keep the 3 rental properties. He's going to keep the home he's living in, which is the old primary residence, and the land. And that's kind of how it was separated out from the beginning in our like provisional order. And then every time we went to mediation, what he wanted changed. And then I slowly lost my ever loving mind. And I was like, we have to sell everything. I can't do this. And at that point, I just wanted a clean break. And I also was worried that I'd constantly be liable if like for mortgages down the road, because he's never been he's never been a part of, like, his expertise was, he was amazing at remodeling houses. Like, to this day, I haven't beat his attention to detail on remodels. Like, I can not find a tile guy that beats him. And so, there's a lot of things that we struggled with, but remodeling really wasn't one of them, I guess, until the end. And so, that was just my expertise as well as taking out mortgages. And so I'm like, given, where the state of affairs is, I don't imagine going out and getting mortgages by himself is going to be like a top priority. And so I was really afraid to be tied long term, because there's horror stories out there, and there's a couple of accounts, and I can't think of who it is now, where like actually in Felipe Mejia's mom, like 8 years down the road, like was still liable for a mortgage, and she like couldn't sell the house because he was like in Mexico, and she was like stuck with this mortgage and couldn't sell the property because he was just like gone. And so this was like one of my biggest fears, is getting stuck like, oh, like it's going swimmingly for 5 years on some kind of seller financing thing. And then all of a sudden, something bad happens to the people, and then he's not paying for it, and then I'm stuck paying for it. And I'm like, I really need to break ties. Yeah. Like, I really can't have the stress of, I already did a year of this, and I'm tapped out. So I was like, if we're going to keep arguing about it, we just need to get rid of everything. And he quickly said yes, which I'm still shocked at to this day, that was like the easiest yes I think we got during the whole time. And I'm like, sweet. But I think, again, it's the lure of a clean break in, like starting over with your own funds. And so he needs money for certain things. I need money for certain things. And so we can both kind of start over in one of the hottest markets. So we were never interested in exploring other ways, because we were just trying to get top market value. And then to me, it was very valuable to appoint the receiver, so we didn't have to wait for like email communications, because a breakdown in the communication is why everything took so long. And so to avoid communication breakdown, I was like, I really feel adamant that we appoint a receiver to just handle everything, and that we don't need to be present at any of the closings. We're not going to pick the offer. Like, the receiver will do all of the choosing the list prices, choosing which offer wins, all of that, and do all the closings like on our behalf. And so that was pretty amazing. And then at that point, it's totally out of my hands. Like it's up to her whether she accepts like seller financing. But I think in this crazy market of 2021, you'd be kind of dumb to do it any other way when you're trying to get a clean break out of the deal.
Yeah. Clean break, top dollar.
Yeah.
Above ask, the whole.
Yeah. I think we lost money on one, but it was like totally demoed, like down to the studs. The rest we made like at least a 30% like return on, like we doubled our money on the piece of land. We had the biggest returns on the 2 properties I found off of Facebook Marketplace. So the piece of land I found on Facebook from this like old couple that was selling, and then one of the houses I found on Facebook Marketplace. And so those were like the ones that like crushed it. So I think it was like a 97% rate of return on the land, and then like 60 something on the other house or something. You can go. It's on my Instagram feed. I posted like all of the, like how much we bought it for and how much they sold for. And it's just ridiculous. So 2020 was very good for us. I'm going to be blessed with some capital gains to pay. So for better or worse.
Yeah. But you'll be cash rich and able to kind of dive in now and leverage that, whether you actually leverage the cash or not, or just decide to keep it in house. It shows on your income statement for the lender and all that stuff.
Right. Exactly. I want to throw it into real estate again. Well, I need to pay off some things because I'm now like the person that was Dave Ramsey, and now I have like a remodel sitting on a credit card right now. So I'm like devastated by it, but I'm like, there's money coming. So I just need to like limp by. But at this point, it's almost paid off because I thought the funds would be happening a lot sooner, but we had some delays and things for communication reasons.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So
take the point.
Or not shocking.
Not shocking at all. I was like, not surprised. Like at this point, nothing surprises me. So
right. So I'm curious about we had Mindy Templeton. I think she was on Bill. Was she on episode number 2? Right? 2?
She was.
I think it's number 2.
Just to kind of call back, Lauren and Kyle were episode 1.
Oh yeah. You had Lauren and Kyle were your OG episode. Yeah.
Yes. That's why we had to have you on the top 10 or the first 10 episodes, Sarah, because I feel like you're like an OG, like-minded investor. You've been supporting us for so long. So I'm like,
you guys are doing amazing things. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm really excited to share this episode and watch your podcast grow. Like, I'm so excited for it because you guys are awesome.
Thanks, girl. Thanks. So I'm curious about how kind of like, I actually didn't know until just now that you found some of your properties on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of people just think that they go to realtors or an agent and they find a property on the MLS and that's the only way to do it. But it is pretty cool. I didn't realize that you yourself found, at least from what I'm hearing, 2 properties from Facebook Marketplace. What else do you do to kind of find these properties? And I don't know, maybe if it is on the MLS, kind of, do you have any tips for people to get a deal on a property that actually makes sense if they're going to rent it out or rehab it or, do whatever it needs to be done to it in order for it to make, sense as an investment?
Yeah. So I'm just always on Facebook Marketplace, looking at rental comps. So where I live, so like people have the amazing privilege of having like Rentometer work in their area. I live literally in the middle of nowhere. None of the websites that are like, oh, this is what your house should rent for, none of them work for me, which is very frustrating, but it's been a really big blessing because it means I'm constantly on Facebook Marketplace looking for rent comps because for some reason, most of the landlords around here will post their rentals on Facebook to try to get it rented. And so there's a few bigger websites that I pull comps from of like larger companies that are kind of, property management, and then Facebook lists. So while I'm in there looking for like rental comps, there's like houses for sale too, constantly looking on Facebook. And so I've found 2 properties over the years, like hit it out of the park. Like the one was like a 3-bed, 1-bath for $64,000. And I'm like, done. Like, this is the easiest house I've ever bought. And then the land was $110,000 for 22 acres, which is probably crazy for a lot of you listening.
Oh my God.
But it didn't have a house on it. I think it was just bare land for 22 acres for $110,000. Yeah. So that was pretty awesome. It was a beautiful piece of land too. Like it was gorgeous, like loved it. And the other family will be very excited to own it. So it's kind of fun to see like the next generation of people like buy these deals, but we definitely like killed it on the numbers on those. So, but yeah, otherwise I'm pretty boring. Like otherwise it's MLS and looking, you do have to get creative a little bit lately. I've had I don't know. I just feel like if you're patient, like I'm not trying to buy like 50 units a year. I just need like 1 or 2 good deals a year, maybe 3. And so the odds of me finding at least like 1 good deal on the MLS a year, even in 2021, like it still happens. And so you just have to like be patient because you're not going to get one like every month, but you can get one at least a couple times a year. I actually bid on a second duplex this year also and didn't get it. One of my really good friends got it and I love to hate her. No, but this is her first rental property. So I'm kind of like a proud parent also. So it's like a love situation, I guess. So watching her do her very first rental is kind of more amazing than actually getting it myself. And then there was another one that came up shortly after that I didn't go after, just because I feel like I needed to wait for my rentals to no longer be in credit cards before buying something else. So, or my renovations, not rentals. So yeah, that's kind of my deal finding is pretty basic. I've done 2 yellow letter campaigns. My first had a total of 2 letters in it. My second campaign had 34 letters in it. And then my second campaign of 34 letters, I actually got a response. Like this lady called me and she wasn't interested in selling right now, but she's currently managing rentals for her parents who have since divorced, and her mom has like 3 or 4 and her dad has 6. And so I like keep her number saved in my phone. And I tried to call her like a month ago to see if she'd talk to me again and she didn't answer. But I just keep her number and I'm, on my phone hoping that one day she's going to unload all of these, because this one, I'm like dying to own her 1 duplex that's like up the road from my house hack in a really good neighborhood. So I'm like, please call me first before you don't listen to all these realtors about the seller's market. Sell to this like strange girl who mailed you a letter. So
fortune is in the follow-up though, as they say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, there have been a couple properties where I've done, let me think, 4 or 5 direct mail campaigns. Like the biggest one was like 600 letters. And there were a couple of properties where I'm like, oh my God, if I had just like followed up, we would have been able to get it within a couple $1,000s of our max bid. So definitely fortune in the follow-up and, keep going after them. But that's pretty cool.
Do you follow up differently with your campaign? Like I'm trying to figure out like next steps. Like I need a new angle to like come at this lady. Because clearly calling her, she's like, yeah, I'm not answering this girl. So maybe, I might, maybe send her some other letters.
Send like a pretty letter with your beautiful face on it and be like, hey, I really want to buy your place.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is the other extremely embarrassing thing. Okay. So I sent my letter yellow campaign and then I went on a week vacation to Florida and I was with my parents and they had terrible reception where we were at. And so I'm like trying to talk to this lady on the phone and she's older, slightly hard of hearing. And I have terrible cell reception. It's like a perfect storm. So I know she owns 1 of 2 duplexes and they're both like beautiful. They're both in the same street, but I don't know exactly which one it is. So we'll just have to send letters to both. And then hopefully the right one will be the winner and she'll call me. But embarrassingly, when I'm like caught off guard that I actually got a response back thinking that would never happen, I didn't ask her like, by the way, ma'am, like which of the houses were yours? So I had to like figure out from my like 34 letters, which ones were duplexes. And I have it narrowed down to like, she's either like this lady or this lady, but I didn't formally know exactly who she was because one of them's like in a trust. And so, yeah, it was complicated and I can't entirely figure out which one is hers. So that's fun. I don't know what house I'm buying, but I'd like to own it.
Yeah. No matter what it is, I want to own it.
Yeah. They're both like 2-bed, 1-bath duplexes. And so I'm like, they're really similar. So she's like, well, the duplex. And I'm like, yeah, sure I do.
For the price of a stamp, you can double down.
Yeah, there we go. So 2 stamps are needed to figure out which one I'm going after.
Watch out with that budget.
I know. Budget needs to get locked up now.
So I'm curious, you said that you're kind of on the pace to buy 1 or 2 deals a year.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people, I feel like I'm one of those. I don't know if Bill is. He's on his first like live and flip right now. I don't know if like he plans on scaling or, you know, being like this big time real. Okay. Yep. He's shaking his head. Yes.
I mean, the dream, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I personally, you know, me and my husband, I'm a real estate agent. My husband is a remodeling contractor. You know, we have a remodeling business. We don't really have any plans of like scaling the real estate huge. Like we've been doing 1 or 2 deals a year. So it's kind of interesting to have you on because I feel like you're somebody almost, I don't know, I wouldn't say one of the first, but it seems like you're okay with not scaling huge fast. Kind of like what brought you to your decision to only do 1 or 2 deals a year within real estate?
So I got hooked on it because so first of all, I have like different mentors than a lot of people. So people are like hardcore drinking like Bigger Pockets Kool-Aid, and Bigger Pockets gives me anxiety sometimes. Love them, like love what they're doing. They're badass. But also like people are like, I own 1,000 units. And I like literally break out in like a hot sweat. Like that just like makes me super nervous. And I'm like, good for you. But I feel like people are just bigger, like growing to grow. And they're not really thinking like mindfully about the portfolio they're building. And so I started following. So my original person that got me really interested in thinking that like me, the not handy human, could do real estate was Paula Pant, which a lot of people don't know. She doesn't afford anything. And so I'm obsessed with her. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to FinCon or whatever this airs. I'm going to FinCon, which is like September 22nd. And she's one of the hosts again this year. And so I'm very like nerding out over the possibility of meeting her. So, she is a phenomenal person. And so she was not handy, but bought like a small but mighty portfolio. And then from her, I got hooked on Coach Carson. And so he's written one of the books for Bigger Pockets, actually. So he did financial independence through real estate, and he did a lot of case studies on smaller portfolios. And so I like the risk reduction of like having just a small but mighty portfolio of like 10 to 20, maybe 30 units. I do think like what some people are doing is pretty bad. Like the Stealthy Rich, I think, are doing really badass things, but they kind of have to like double because there's 2 of them. So they have, you know, like I think 80 properties or so, but they need to have double. So I'm like, okay, for me, that would look like 40 realistically. But I'm more about cash flow, and people get really caught up in burr and like sucking all your money out and buying more, which I think is valid to grow. But at some point, my cash flow off of 10 houses will be what other people are getting off of more like 30 houses, because I'm going to pay them off or down. So I really want like 10 paid off versus 30 that cash flow like $200 a door. Don't check my math. That was really bad mental math. It's late. I don't know where my number is. So essentially imagine like if your cash flow is like, I don't know, like, okay, so if your cash flow is $200 a door, but your mortgage is say $600, that's $800 a month that you from one property. And so paid off less of them sounds like way less of a job. And I'm the financial independence person. So I'm not trying to buy myself a job. And I know there's lots of systems and you can scale and you can get property management companies. But at some point I'm like, but if I only need like 10 to 20, I feel like that's manageable. And if I want to get a property manager later, sweet. But I feel like that's way less CapEx and overhead and headache to have paid off houses versus highly leveraged houses. So it's just kind of a personal philosophy, but I don't have an ego really. And especially like, I didn't really have an ego before. Like I'm only competitive with myself. And so I'm like, and then divorce like really crushes that out of you. Like you just like, but I think it's been great because I'm like, I don't really give a shit. Like if people are like, oh, I want to buy storage units in like 1031 exchange and apartment complexes. I'm like, I really like a good single family home, like just really like it because I'm like, I want to put someone in there and have them live there for 30 years and pay off the mortgage like 3 times. So that's kind of the dream is houses like, so I don't know. I'm like going through all of Instagram. So if you guys follow the late, like Rick Jarman, he had a house that he talked about where he's real estate old school. He passed away from COVID earlier.
Oh my God. I cried.
So,
I cried so hard when I heard that. Days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Days.
I loved him. I absolutely loved him.
He is just a phenomenal human being. And so during my divorce, he listened to me talk to, it was a podcast or a live episode. And I talked to, I can't remember. He does, anyway, I'll think of it later. Steve Rosenberger. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Steve Rosenberg.
Anyway,
Steve Rosenberg.
Yeah. Okay. So him and I had a little live event and he like drilled me on like which houses to keep and how to scale and like 10X. And Rick called me like on the phone, like asked for my number afterwards. And we would have like several phone conversations from then on out because he said my story sounded really similar to what his daughter went through. And so we talked a lot about like all the craziness that was going on with my life. And because I went through like stalking and all sorts of fun things in the mix as well. And so he like something resonated, I guess, with him. And I didn't say that in the episode, but he just like felt the need to reach out because he's just such a good person and we really connected. And so that was devastating to kind of watch him, very unexpectedly pass away. I forget where I was going with this train of thought. But anyway, so he had a property where the single mom moved in with her baby and 30 years. And he remembers like the teenage son, like driving his car to like pay the rent in person. And he was like, oh, like you helped my mom, out. And like, now I'm going to college next year. And like, it was some like really sweet story about like, he watched this little boy grow up in one of his houses. And I always liked story because I'm like, it was a home to them. Like that was the place, there was a single family home. They maintained the outside, inside, and that was theirs for probably the life of the loan because he did 15-year loans. But I think she had more than paid off the mortgage by living there. But that's kind of where I felt like that niche was kind of more my calling of what I wanted to do is just, giving people that pride of ownership. Like I don't need the giant apartment complex. Like I like helping families. And so that's more like meaningful to me. But again, like I have the corporate job for the money. This is kind of like my fun, like passion project that will become like a real like wealth building stream. So yeah, that's kind of my, probably very not mainstream approach to real estate, like 1031 exchanges and 10Xing and all of that. Like I'm not going to 10X my mistakes. I'm kind of learning slowly along the way. And I think that's kind of the danger also when you scale up so fast, as I worry about these really, really young investors out there, just like burring their life away and how that's going to look sustainably when the market eventually dips, which I think is a really, really long time away because of the like building shortage that's out there. If people have followed that at all. So there's just a shortage of like homes for people to buy because there was people just stopped building after 2008. And so I'm like, we're a long way away, I think, from anything bad happening, but eventually like the tide goes out. So
something has to happen at some point, but
right.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, Bill, I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say same thing. Like it's bound to happen. History proves it. But I think the one thing that you touched on that I think people forget, and I think Bigger Pockets does a disservice with, is the humanity of real estate investing. Like you are literally giving someone a home. There is a customer service aspect to it where, they are paying you, they're paying the mortgage, they're giving you profit. They're giving you a certain lifestyle, even really, when you think about it.
Right. Oh, totally. I live a very cushy lifestyle. I need I need like several houses to afford my like clothing habit. So it's real.
I mean, we all have our vices. Like when COVID's over, like I want to travel to Europe and do my thing.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, like you said, like having a family grow up in the house would be ideal, especially if they take care of the property and they pay their rent on time. Like that's the goal. I mean, obviously you would hope that family maybe learned and appreciated real estate for themselves, but at the same time, not everybody wants to be a homeowner. Some people just want to rent. They're not handy. They don't want to deal with it. And that's okay too. Right.
And I still like run a business. Like I feel like some days I talk like the touchy feely side because it's like what I'm passionate about. But then other days, like I just to kind of because I'm like, now people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, that's too soft for real estate. But I'm like, I was talking to someone today and they're like, I can't get anyone to do rent collection through like Rent Ready or like I use Avail, like whatever, like X online platform. I'm like, then say you won't rent to them.
Yeah.
It's literally that simple. I'm like, that's a no from me. Like I was not meant to be your landlord then. Like I want good people, but like, so there's like a fine line between like taking care of humans, but they also have to like meet certain like I will blow your mind with how fast I'm going to get something repaired and fixed because that's what I take pride in. But like, if you can't figure out how to pay your rent online, like we're not going into this relationship and like, you can't like mess with my systems. So
yeah, totally agree with that.
There is a fine line between like being like friendly, but also like, we're not like trying, like, I'm not trying to hang out with you. Like, we're not going to be buddies,
right.
But like, I do like send you a gift card for Christmas because that's like a nice gesture. And it's, we'll see if that continues into the future.
It's like your, artwork or saying in the background, work hard and be nice. Yeah. You can be both.
Exactly. Yeah, you can totally be both. So it's very true. So yeah, for those of you who can't see my giant, like I kind of ordered it and I'm really bad at measuring things sometimes. This is why I like was not the contractor. It's like a giant like work hard and be nice sign. But it's so true. Like just like treating humans well, but then also you have to demand some level of respect too in this business or you'll get run over. So because everyone has a sad story, everyone. So
agree. Yeah, that's for sure. I was a property manager, like corporate property manager for hundreds of units for years after I graduated college. And I have heard it all. Like I've had mice in bags thrown on my desk, like just the most craziest things happen to me. And it's like everybody, yeah, you're right. Everybody has their story, but it's so funny. You were talking about, like accommodating people. I was just thinking about the other day, there is one tenant that we still have that I'm like, the only reason we have a PO box anymore is for this one tenant to send us rent. And I'm just like, oh, if I could get them to get onto, because we use, it was cozy.co. Now it's apartments.com. Yep. I am thinking about switching to Avail. Maybe we need to talk about that afterwards. My favorite. But I am switching.
Let me get my soapbox about my Avail obsession. It's unreal. So
we'll need to chat about that. But I'm like, if I could just get them onto, an online rent payment system, I would not even need to be spending $100 a month or $100 a year, which I know is not much. On this PO box. So I am all on board about kind of like give and take with tenants, because the other thing too is with those tenants that are paying by the PO box, it's like we are there within 24 hours. Anything that happens, we go and fix it within 24 hours. Like you can guarantee it almost that it will be fixed. Yeah. So I think, I agree. It's like a give and take.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing is I inherited some tenants, and last time I was like way too nice to my very first inherited tenants. And then this time around, I'm like, I'm going to give you 2 months. I only accept payments online through my online platform. Get a sister, get a friend, figure it out. But I'm like, I will not renew you if you can't figure out online payments. And I'm telling this like 80-year-old grandma this. And I'm like, I feel like such an asshole, but I'm like, it's systems and I have a full-time job. It's literally kicking my ass right now. It's kind of getting better, but, I just don't have, I'm not going to deal with the checks and the stories and whatever. And I'm like, I know you can, like, every person's going to promise you they're going to pay and it's going to be easy and great and fantastic. And I'm like, I'm not, like, you get 2 months of normal, like however you're paying, pay me in that way. If you mean to drive over and pick it up for 2 months, like knock yourself out. But after that 2 months is up, like, you are moving on, or we are like figuring out online payments. And
I love it.
Magically, they all figured it out. It's crazy. I'm like, you like find someone to help you. I'll sit down and help you. Like if you set up auto pay, like you don't have to worry about it for like the rest of the year. Yeah. So
yeah.
And I don't think that's like a major hill for anybody to die on, even an 80-year-old grandma.
Yeah.
Like
she figured it out. I was very proud of her. Yeah.
I mean, if they know how to FaceTime their grandkids, they can figure it out.
Yeah, I'm like, get one of your grandkids over here. Like they're tech savvy. They'll figure it out. Like all you have to do is feel like comfortable giving your like 14-year-old nephew your like bank information. But
I mean, they'll do like a little TikTok dance about it or something.
Exactly. Whatever the kids are doing.
Dating myself.
So Sarah, I guess we're kind of going to wrap up here in a second. I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, Bill, if you have any other like pressing questions, but my last question.
I have one question, but you can go first.
Okay. So my last question is, so last week we went over the 5 like top fears that new real estate investors have. So I'm kind of curious, since I feel like you're kind of like me. Like, I feel like I had like 2 real estate journeys where one was with my parents and, I flipped 5 houses with my parents and helped them manage their rental properties. And then I moved on and did stuff with my husband. So I feel like I kind of had like 2 investing journeys. And I had different fears for each one. And so I'm kind of curious kind of how, what were your fears when you started investing with your now ex-husband versus kind of what are your fears now doing without him?
So I think I wasn't afraid of buying the first rental property with him until we closed. And then I had this like, oh shit moment. Like I cried in Aldi and then I don't know if you guys have Aldi. Yes. And then some mindful money coaches, Liz was like my mentor, like still is to this day. Like she's my business, like mentor. And I called her from like the Aldi parking lot crying because I'm like, he's handy, but I have to find tenants. I don't know where to get lease forms. I don't know how to like set a budget for this. Like, I don't know what anything costs. Like, and this guy's not going to set a budget. Like he can go in and remodel stuff, but like how much is going to cost? Like, I don't know anything. Like I don't. And so I'm like, it's literally just me, like going to be me figuring it out because he's going to be in like the action item, but like, can we even afford to do the actions like that? Like there's so many pieces, like the behind the scenes work. And I'm like, and I quickly realized that would be me. And I'm like, oh shit, like this, and I don't like, this is the amateur hour. It's like the blind leading the blind, only it's just me, like, it's just figuring it out and kind of like working your way through it. And then to learn that like most people are just like guessing and checking. And I think that's like the thing with houses is you're just like fake it till you make it. Like someone knows how to fix, like someone has seen this plumbing issue before, this like drywall problem, or, there's YouTube videos for everything. And so it's just like a giant problem solving exercise. But when you first have to know, like, do I like bring the tenants in and like sit them down and like walk through the lease form with them? Like, how do you even do that? Like, are they going to act like think I'm crazy, like a toddler, like walking them through like a little kid, or is this like what people do? And so you just don't know anything. And so that was kind of the terrifying thing, is to realize that like all the logistics, like there were so many logistical pieces besides renovating. And so it quickly became a lot more of a business for both of us to be in versus like, I thought it'd be more for him, but then he's the remodeling expert. And I'm like, holy shit, there's so many other pieces to this. This is a lot. And then, so by the time I did it myself, I feel like I'd hyped myself up so much because people just thought I was crazy, like house hacking with the toddler. And then I had this vision to like add an extra bedroom downstairs and like split this giant picture window in half. I've saved in my highlights, but like when I was like, I'm going to run a wall down the middle of this window, and people were like, dear God, what is this girl? So I had to be my own hype man. And so I think by like because I'm like, there is no like way to like, there is no other option. Like this is going to work. And so you just do it. So I don't know. I feel like the second time around, I was a lot less afraid, but I'm like, I can call some people and figure it out and get quotes. And I had to fire a contractor, and I mean, it was messy, but I had a lot of calls with like Rick Jarman about like, I froze my own furnace, like literally froze it solid. My contractor I fired filled my furnace with insulation. It was just a strange that I have a brand new furnace in HVAC that probably died like 10 years prematurely because of that incident. And so it was a lot of learning curve for this house. And then after I like limped through my own and like doubled my remodel budget, I felt like way more confident for the next one. By then I'd like assembled a team of humans to like fix all the mishaps that happened. And then I found some pretty good people. So like once you get your team, it gets easier. And then they might know somebody that knows somebody, and like, who knows a plumber? And you just kind of grow out your team. So I don't know. The rest was pretty simple, I guess. I don't know. The second time around was a lot less scary, but I feel like a lot more went wrong, which is interesting. But I think I was just like, it's fine. Everything's fine. We're making it. So a lot of mindset, I think, was more positive and more like, I'm just going to own it because it's me and I'm going to prove that I can do it. But
yes,
I'm also very stubborn.
Mindset is
mindset's everything.
Everything. I've been meeting with a mindset coach for almost actually it's been over a year now, every single Thursday morning. So tomorrow morning I meet with her every single week, and she has made the biggest difference like in my life. I'm like, if you want to get started in real estate, I think you should start with a mindset coach instead of
1,000%. Like, I don't think I'd be where I am, or like these people like, how are you happy? How are you not like under a blanket of anxiety, like hiding in your bathroom? I'm like, you have no idea, my friend. Like, it was rough times. And so like, it's just a mindset work. So I had a life coach that was like a divorce life coach that taught me mindset, and it just changes because like everything, the way you interpret the world is just like, sorry, this will get lovely and deep, but you'll appreciate this. Because like everything is like, everything is neutral. Like you're like, I'm sure this guy, like my furnace is full of insulation. There's nothing I'm going to do to change that. I can react like this sucks, or I can react like I'm going to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And this sucks, this terrible, woe is me. Like you do this downward spiral where you don't get anything accomplished and you don't get anything done, and you're unhappy and you're miserable and you're stuck in this situation. Or I can be like, well, shit, this isn't great, but here we are. So I call, and you just start calling people and you work down your list of contacts and you figure it out. And then at the end of the day, like your furnace isn't full of insulation anymore. And you like accomplish something and you're feeling empowered and badass and like ready to do the next thing. And you're like, well, this is a way better space for me to operate in. Like just this handling the shit when it comes at you, because like it will, like everything will come at you. Like life will give you a million reasons to be negative, but it's like a choice how you interpret life. Like cars break down, houses break, furnaces, like shit always breaks, but it's like, how do you choose to feel about it? Like, does it like ruin your whole day? Or are you like I'm so blessed that I have a really good furnace man named Edward that will answer me at weird hours of the night. So we're now best friends.
Shout out Edward.
I was gonna say, I feel like we need to like give like a round of applause right now. If we were like editing, put a round of applause in there for Edward right now.
In there. Yeah. He's the best. Or Richard, his last name is that, but anyway, so now everyone knows him. Please don't like stalk my HVAC guy. He's like a saint. He also has like 7 kids, so like bless him. Like he's a rock star. Or really his wife, like she makes the world go round. So yeah, they're pretty awesome. So yeah, he deserves it. He's been the real MVP through all this because I've had the most furnace problems ever. So
I feel like it's
great guy.
What podcast is it where they go MVP? Is that
Real Estate Rookie?
Rookie, okay.
Oh.
Yep.
He's your MVP.
He is. No, he totally is. So we're probably going to do, so when I get my mystery pile of cash, we're going to put a new furnace and air conditioning units on both sides of my new duplex, because the HVAC and AC units are literally my age. Like I'm 32. They're 32 years old and still alive. I don't know how, but I'm like, I feel like we're on borrowed time, and it's going to be like the dead of winter during like another polar vortex, and they're going to go out. So yeah. Like Richard's helped me with a lot of things over the years, like dealing with all of my like weird problems. And so I'm about to buy a new furnace from him. So he'll keep answering my weird questions and phone calls and text messages with pictures on like, how bad is this?
Smart. It's smart.
Yeah.
So Bill, did you have a last question or two here before we wrap up. I'm like really sad that I feel like this it's been probably over an hour now. Sarah, you are the most like interesting person. I feel like we could talk to you for like 5 more hours, but it is 10:22 and I was supposed to be in bed an hour ago. So
yeah, I say this is way past your bedtime. We're keeping you.
Yeah. We'll stay on. We'll keep going. You can go to bed.
So in twist of irony, you're up really late, but in the morning, my bookkeeper is coming over 8 a.m. So which means I have to get the toddler to my babysitter at 7:30 to get my ass home by 8 o'clock, where my bookkeeper comes over to like help me with like, she scanned in all of my receipts from literally the beginning of the year until now. And so we're going to dive through that at like 8 a.m. And so I know that's not early for you, but like I have to get up, look like a normal human because I have like business meetings for my day job after that. So I have like get up, shower, take the toddler, get back, like do bookkeeping and then start the day job.
Well, we so appreciate you being up this late though. I mean, and
I would have been up this late anyway.
I'm a little bit jealous that you have a bookkeeper coming over to do that. That's like my job once a month. She's new. This is our first foray into scanning in receipts. And I literally gave her like, I'm sorry, here is my basket of like if you open the lid, it'll like come out at you like situation. And I'm like, do your best and we'll talk in like 2 weeks. So yeah, but she's amazing. So hoping that goes well, but she's she's owned a couple businesses and sold them. And so she's looking for just like side work to kind of keep her busy. And so I'm like, I don't really need a lot. Like I'm like, I feel like I need a lot, but it's like a good, like we're more doing it for the networking, like tell me your business knowledge while we talk about receipt scanning. So it's pretty cool. So I'm very excited to have her around.
That is very cool. So I do have one question. It's kind of not related to accounting. It kind of ties back into the whole mental health and everything. Do you have or want to share any resources that kind of helped you get through the tough times? I know that we often talk about all the good times and all the celebratory things on Instagram and stuff, and the community, but I know there's people out there who want to get started who are struggling through one thing or another, and it might help somebody.
So definitely. So I guess, my first life coach was, so her account is, it used to be Stairgo Coaching, and now she is considering divorce, I believe. Her name is Britta. And she does coaching programs for people considering divorce, like trying to decide if they want to stay in their marriage or if they want to leave the marriage, and trying to like think clearly. And it's a mindset work. It's like thinking clearly so you're not making a very emotional choice in like a very emotionally charged situation.
Right.
And so she was really instrumental in just like getting my head straight so I could even like begin to process what was happening. So she's excellent. And I send a lot of people her way if they're interested in like working through their own like marriage issues. And then I also have Liz Carroll, the life coach. She is my business coach and she does like money coaching. So if people are wondering about like debt and personal finance and all of that and like mindset around money and like specifically like scarcity mindset, where you might think like, I don't know, like people have like very interesting beliefs around money, and she works through a lot of that. So she's a really good resource. I've had an array of like counselors over the years. Like I get various like free ones through like different jobs. And so I always have like whatever like corporate like counselor they like assign to you. And then I've changed jobs a couple of times. So I've had a few different counselors over the years that like helped during various phases of things, because I had like really bad anxiety and like slight depression by the time like I decided to like sort my life out. And let's see what else. So for those of you that followed me, also, I talk a lot about like narcissism and like narcissistic abuse and gaslighting, which are really, really heavy topics, but really, really important ones in relationships, because I didn't realize like he clearly had these tendencies all along, but did whatever he could to keep me around, because I'm a big, like visionary, like big dream, like make money, earn money, like go work my ass off person. And so that's a really attractive thing for someone, because I would make it look shiny and good and like everything was fine and perfect. And so it, and I'm also super busy. So he could get away with a lot of behaviors that I had no idea about until things really hit the fan. And then I found out about all these things that I didn't know about. So there was always kind of like addiction issues along the way that I didn't realize were happening, that I'm like, oh, like you've been doing these for longer than I thought, but I probably didn't know because I was traveling for work and we didn't have a child yet. And we literally led like separate lives. And so I talk a lot about that. There's a ton of Instagram accounts. I have a ton of highlights saved from really good accounts. So it's probably a good place to start if you guys are interested. But what got me on that path is I didn't realize this was happening until a friend of mine said, like, you need to go Google the term gaslighting and figure out what this means to you, because she's like, the person he's saying you are, that isn't who you are. Like the things he's saying about like feeling like he's on eggshells and like you're like so anxious all the time. She's like, but you're not, like, you're not hard to work with. You aren't a bad communicator. You are a good friend. Like you are a valuable member of this team at work. She's like, I don't see the things that you're being told over and over again. And she's like, you really need to look into this, because I think he's warping like your self-perception by constantly kind of repeating these things to you. And I read about gaslighting. I was like, holy shit. But you kind of lose your sense of self when this is repeated to you over time. So that was like really illuminating, is once you're like informed, like once you see it, you can't like unsee it kind of situation. And then after that, there was like no going back, because I'm like, wow, this is extremely unhealthy. And now I'm showing up as like this shell of a person I used to be. And so it's been a really good like self-discovery path as well. Another really good book, if anyone has like addiction issues, is my therapist our marriage counselor at the time. So we tried marriage counseling. It was called Codependency No More. And it talks about alcoholism and it talks about drug abuse specifically and mostly. And it was really, really hard to read the first time. And so I'm like, if I could send anyone that book on like codependency patterns and how like that relationship works, it was really, really illuminating to see. Like, it was very hard to get through the first chapter. And I think that's when I realized like I was in a lot of denial about addiction issues being a problem in my marriage. And then that book was kind of like, oh, and my counselor was like, literally like, Sarah, there's an addiction problem here. Like, you're trying to like fix it and mend it. Like, what can I do? And like, you're trying to like fix it yourself. And she's like, but you can't like do that with this like giant elephant in the room. And so that needs to be addressed if like you're going to move forward. And so we went to marriage counseling for a while. But gaslighting is real, and that didn't like, it ended up not working out so well. But that was kind of the beginning of the end, was just realizing like how twisty things had gotten when you're presenting it to like a third party. So yeah, big supporter of all the counseling, all the life coaching. And that book specifically was really good. And then also there's a book called like The Parallel Parenting Solution, because we have a daughter that we share, and just trying to navigate that in a high conflict parenting situation where like communication is really a challenge. So that's been helpful to kind of understand how to navigate the complexities of that. So
oh my gosh, yeah. I appreciate
that's a really rambly list of resources. Sorry. Now this is taken.
No.
I'm like shaving years off your life by just like rambling on and on, but this is lots of resources.
Incredible. And obviously, you know, if anybody knows a problem or who is in a marriage and there's problems or whatever, you know, get help, ask them if they need help, you know, all that good stuff. You know,
I think the most illuminating thing, like realizing your problem, is like if you feel isolated from friends and family, and then friends and family are reaching out to you to be like, this isn't like you, and like he's describing you in this way, but like no one else would describe you like that. That was kind of the oh shit moment. And then also that he like little like big things that were always there was like they tend to make every holiday and birthday and special occasion about them. That was like a tried and true thing I found across every person I've ever talked to about it. And it's so random. Like they will spoil anniversaries, Christmases, birthdays, Thanksgiving. Like there's always conflict, and you're like, holidays should be happy. Like this is a time of like human connection and joy. And it was conflict. Like every major event had some kind of conflict. And so that's like a very, very big red flag if you're like wondering if this could be something you're in. So that's kind of the easy one that I feel like it's pretty universal. So, and it's a very oddly specific thing.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And obviously we'll link all of that good stuff along with
a big job linking.
Yeah, we'll make sure the show notes have as much of it as possible. I'll go through your Instagram and maybe try to find a couple of those Instagram accounts as well that you mentioned in your highlights, so that we have as many resources as possible for people, because
there's a lady called like Melanie Evans who's from like the UK, and I just enjoy watching her content because she has a real solid British accent, and she's also just really good. But I like hear for all the accents, like it brings me a little extra layer of joy. And then there's another account that's my ex is a narcissist and I made it out. Those are my two favorites that I follow still, because I had to like break up with some of the accounts because it wasn't healthy, like living in this space anymore, because I'm like, I feel like my life is like advancing beyond that being like a big part of my identity. But there's a few accounts that I just like, I'm still learning from, because it's a lot to unpack. And so the one that she does a really good job. And I tag her stuff like probably every day, every week. So it's really good. So that one seems to be like a decently balanced one. Some are a little like, it's a very emotionally charged situation. So some accounts are very like blunt, and she seems to do a good job of keeping it educational. So
yeah, that's good.
If you're like, depending on where you are in the healing process, sometimes you don't need like the bluntness. You just need education to understand what the heck is happening. So.
Right. We appreciate you sharing all of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think awareness is really important, because I've had so many people reach out where you're like, if you like Google gaslighting and it applies to you, it's like a life-changing moment. And so the goal is to like always share it in hopes that like it'll help somebody out, because there's a couple accounts that we still message each other who they've like gotten out. And they're like behind me, and there's a couple accounts that are ahead and a couple of accounts that are behind in the whole like process of things. But I'm like, this is the phase you're in. In about 2 months, you're going to feel better. Good news. But it's very interesting. They all have like a very like creepily similar behavior pattern. So it makes it really easy to talk about with people because it's exactly the same. So
I appreciate you. And I am sure so many of our listeners are going to appreciate you just being so open and honest about it. And I feel like a lot of people, you know, if they are experiencing this kind of a situation, are definitely not going to be afraid to reach out to you. And just from my own personal experience, I know that you're going to answer them, because I feel like you answer every DM that you get. Yeah. I don't know how you do it, but
There's some that I have, like, I feel like in like DM purgatory where they're like so long and I want to get them a response. They're like chilling in my inbox a little bit. It's like, I'll get to you when I have time. But if I haven't ever gotten back to you, either A, I forgot, or B, I needed to like have more time to like sit and think about a good answer for you. Yeah. But I do answer everybody. So if I neglect you, it's sheer mistake, or you might get a random DM at like 3 a.m. when I have time to think through like a good answer on like
3 pages
a house
long
question or something.
Yeah, it's 3 pages long because you wanted to give them the best possible answer. So yeah. All right. Oh my gosh, this was amazing, Sarah. I absolutely love
this
having
helpful.
you.
This is probably like more than people bargain. This is like all the feels with real estate. So sorry, everyone. No, thank you for going there.
This is going to be the best one yet, right, Bill?
We hope so.
I like it. I'm just excited to be in the top 10. I feel honored. Yeah.
We love you. We love you. All right. Yeah. Well, so if you want to just close us out real quick and tell everybody where they can find you on Instagram. I don't know. I know that I personally know that you have your own podcast and a website and all that good stuff. So if you want to promote all that here real quick, that would be great.
Yeah. So I'm working on, I'm at Nerds Guide to FI on Instagram. So you can find me there. I live on Instagram and I answer all my DMs. So feel free to reach out if you have questions or thoughts or want to know anything deeper. I know we hit a ton of different topics today that we didn't probably have time to dive into. So if you're like have a burning question about portfolio loans or Dave Ramsey, you can always shoot me those. And then otherwise, I now have a new website. I've migrated it twice in the last year. So I'm really have settled on kind of your love as well. So we're on Kajabi now. And so again, doing the podcast, but the big thing that's kind of in the works right now is some courses. And so I've done like a mini course on credit score. So just like knowing what makes up a credit score and how they run them for mortgages. There's some handouts on like digital landlord tools. So I'll do like a giant shout out to like Avail in there because Avail is my obsession. And then also Stessa I started using. So like just some like tools and things. And then kind of like a general, I put together like an investor like handbook, like what you do when you buy a house, like how do you find tenants? How do you screen them? Kind of what are the nuts and bolts of from buying the house to putting a human in it, kind of how that goes. So those are out on the blog and we're kind of putting the finishing touches on them. But yeah, so that is out there. So things to look out for the future. So
she only has a couple things going on, guys. Don't.
Yeah.
just she's
barely
only busy
alive.
with one or
It's
two. Yeah.
I have like a course guy and like a podcast girl and like now a personal assistant. So like there's a lot of humans that are like I'm trying to use this year so I don't like totally burn myself into the ground. So we're trying to dig myself out of the hole that I've created, but it's like a passionate place to be, but it's draining sometimes. So trying to keep the bandwidth up so I can answer everybody's DMs and not get exhausted. So because that's the fun part. The Instagram is the fun part. The rest I think we can build out with a good team of people and share the knowledge from Instagram over on different platforms you guys can find. So
agreed. All right, cool. Well, we will link all of that in the show notes. Sarah, thank you so much for being here tonight. I think people are going to absolutely love this episode. You gave so much valuable information. I feel like we're going to have you on again. I feel like you just like, we didn't
would love to do like
into
an episode, like post like the pile of money. Like I just want to see like what happens with that. Like I really want to be like 6 months post money. Like that is because I'm real poor about now. Like I think like when I say like I have like $4,000 to my name, like I'm not kidding.
I love it.
It's gonna be good.
We'll mark the calendars.
Yeah, it'll be
fun.
Post money Sarah episode 22 or something like that.
Yes, yeah, we'll double the episode and we'll see how it goes. But this has been fun.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah.
Yes, thank you guys.
Have a great night.
Yep.
You too.